Hello everyone and welcome back to Miniature Wargaming Labs. Today we're going to do a We Discuss on Osprey Games Ragnarok. This is James. I'm Brian.
Well, thank you. This is another one of those miniature games that you said, come on James, let's play this game. So I bought the book from you.
How many games have you started because I said that?
2. I haven't bought Warcry yet. That would make
Yeah.
I told you. 3 releases. So my rule...
4th one's already been announced, dude. Come on.
My rule on games, and I learned this from Games Workshop, from the lessons of Speed Freaks and Necromant, I'm not going to buy into a particular game system until their 3rd expansion. Because I got to make sure that I'm going to like this thing. There's enough garbage out there to sustain it. So, yeah. All right. So,
moving on. So, who made Ragnarok?
All right. So this is Osprey Games, probably one of our favorite miniature agnostic game systems out there. They keep grinding them out because how many books on different ways Waffen SS wear their uniforms can one publisher make? So they decided to make games about how to play with your Waffen SS once you're done with them. So this is by Tim Korkulewski. Not familiar with that individual, but it's Osprey Games, so I'll give it a shot. And it's part of their hardback series.
Yes.
So you know that's going to be supported into the future.
Very excited about those hardback series. And actually, they already have the test printing of the second book.
I saw that.
Yes.
Yes.
So very excited for that one. All right.
We'll do that one later.
Yes. So what is the theme of Ragnarok?
Vikings.
What gave that away?
So Vikings. If you like Vikings and you like heavy metal music that portrays Vikings, you will like this game.
I mean, it's literally heavy metal combat in the Viking Age.
One of the other things I brought, left it up there, Wargaming Illustrated. So about 2 issues ago, Tim did a written interview in the magazine, and so he goes through everything he was thinking when he came to this game, the miniatures to use, gives a really good overview. So if you find that issue, if you're a subscriber to Wargamers Illustrated Vault, you can look to that and get an idea of what Tim had in mind here. But it was Vikings and heavy metal music. So, you know...
Which go together very well.
You can judge a book by its cover.
And this is judge deemed worthy. All right, so who should play this game?
So that's so fans of Vikings, we've already discussed that.
Yep.
This is one of those games where it's miniature agnostic, and Tim does give you a list of all the places, both in the Wargames Illustrated magazine and in the book, where you can go get Viking miniatures. So you can do some of the simple Bondi, Saxon thing type stuff from Dark Ages if you're doing warlords, anything up to artisans, custom high-end quality out there. So it's do you already have these miniatures? And I think from what we've seen in the stores, the people that pick up these games aren't so much gamers, but they really like Vikings. They already have Viking miniatures, and now there's a rule book to let them play with their Viking toys.
Exactly.
So, but I could... is this one of those games like Frostgrave where we talked about could you take it and take a D&D player and play this game? Sure, I think you could do that. I don't think it's too far off. The Morpheus Engine, the rule mechanic that it uses, would fit in that. But if you're targeting existing skirmisher out there, the real interesting part is what we've seen in a lot of these games, the wandering monsters out there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the game formation side of that, but he does something clever with those wandering monsters out there. But since this is the heavy metal cartoon music video you see out there, the monsters wandering around in the environment where you're trying to fight are deadly, and he tells you make the environment deadly. If you want fields of ice with lava throwing through it, this guy's got rules for that. If you have high tier terrain where you're jumping and flying all over, doing sick Viking combat, this is the game.
Vikings on a volcano.
Yeah, I mean, he really captured some of that in the rules, some of those old music videos that showed cartoon Vikings doing whatever cartoon Vikings do, which apparently is a lot of fighting.
A lot of fighting.
So he was trying to capture that Valhalla feel into these rule set, but I think he did on some of the... We'll talk about some of the other magic behind it.
So, other than the book and awesome Viking miniatures, what else do you need to play this game?
So this game is another one of the 3x3 boards. I think Osprey's really selected that. Told their rule makers, you're going to make it 3x3 or smaller.
Most people have 3x3 tables at home.
I have a 3x3 table.
I have 2.
I have bigger than that, but
yeah,
that's just me.
Exactly.
Because I can put together a 6x4 table, because that was a demand. Say, I must feel the 6x4 table in this house, or I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, so, exactly. That is rules for buying a house.
The problems of the 1%. He does recommend that he set this up for multiplayer. So if you want many bands of Vikings to fight together, he does recommend a 4x4 player. And that's just to make the move in the fight, instead of turning into a giant scrum in the middle of the board, 4x4, go with that. But I don't see many skirmishers doing multiplayer games. I've tried it a couple times and it never really works out.
I do it a lot in Frostgrave games. And of course...
That's a lot simpler mechanic.
It is.
Yeah.
And it does play well with that.
Multiplayer kill team, not that fun.
Does not work well.
Yeah. I mean, we just break into our own little games.
Exactly. You're pretty much playing on two maps and have the ability to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let me go down through this. You'll need some counters, but like other Osprey games, unlike Zone Raiders, it doesn't really fully detail what counters to capture the board state out there. So you're going to take a couple times through, and a couple times you're like, oh my god, I forgot he was on fire. Okay, because I don't have a fire token, I better get a fire token.
Yep. So. Always nice. Always have an on-fire token, just any game you're playing.
So a thing you'll need in here, and they have a huge section in the back, is you're going to need a lot of fantasy monsters.
Yes.
And he covers. So stop by Reaper and WizKids, load up on Ettins and Trolls,
Ice Giants and the Kraken.
Every type of like monster WizKids out there, you're going to need one of these if you want
at least
to
one.
Fully play it out.
Plus some.
And the fantastical terrain, like it says, he envisions like high cliffs that you're jumping off of and climbing up. So you're going to need a lot of.
So one thing I think we missed is that these Vikings are also trying to ascend to godhood.
Yeah, we skipped the fluff.
They're gaining superpowers. So these are also superpowered Vikings. So when we're talking about like he wants your terrain to be completely like cartoonish and like super dangerous, think dangerous on like to Thor.
Yeah, well the idea of this game is that I won't go into the fluff of the legend, but this is basically a post-apocalyptic Viking world, and the Viking bands are fighting for godhood. And we'll talk about how that plays out in the mechanic, but that fight for godhood creates like these epic superpowered characters because they're collecting the energy of gods to become themselves.
Yes.
So that's why you need this super... And the world's collapsed, so that's why all these strange creatures and lava flows and ice flows have come out of nowhere. Because you're fighting heavy metal, post-apocalyptic Viking world. Right
that
now.
was the best sentence I've ever heard.
We'll put that as the tag. That'll be the next tagline. Osprey Games continue $5.
So, how do the game mechanics work?
So, he built this around. He makes a big deal around both in the Wargames Illustrated article and in the book, talking about this thing called the Morpheus Engine, and that's a clever term for table. There's a table in there, and he calls it an engine because he wanted something you could apply to any game system of rolling dice to resolve whatever issue you have. So this is so it's basically a table with 2 rows of numbers. So whenever you're trying to do something like take an action, like lift heavy boulder, beat guy up, so you're going to take your opponent's score, your score, the boulder score because it's super heavy. And you're going to roll dice against each other, you're going to add modifiers, and depending on how the skill matchups, success or failure. We were talking a little bit about this in the Frostgrave.
Yes.
But what actually reminded me more was of D&D's skill test.
Okay.
Or, you got a 20-sided die, and if you're a god, you're trying to hit 30, because gods can do that type of thing. That's where it was one of those things that made me think a little bit of D&D, because the way the Morpheus Engine does skill tests, you're basically rolling off on skill tests.
Nice. I like
that. It did take me a couple times reading through to grasp what he was doing with the Morpheus Engine, because the first time I read it is like, he comes off as this game designer, and he's like, you know what I wanted was the perfect mousetrap, and I've made it here. Like, over 20 years, how many game designers have I said, I've made the ideal rule system? Okay, ego aside, I read it through a couple times and thought, okay, I can see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's a skill testing algorithm there. Okay, I'll go with that. That'll work. So, but there's a thing he always wanted in here, is that there's an always win and an always fail. Okay. So if you roll, it's not D20, it's a 2D6. So if you roll a 2, you're going to lose. If you roll a 12, well, you just punched Thor in the face, and he took it hard. So there's always that idea that, there's criticals, either down low, up high. We've seen it in a lot of the Osprey games. Yes. That way, anything can take on anything. Now, in a standard game, this is a standard I go, you go game format. There's no activations or random garbage going on in there. So that's pretty simple.
Now, is it I activate one, you activate one, or is it you activate all, I activate all?
It's a back and forth.
Okay, I like that.
So one of the things we want to talk about, and what makes this special, is what's called God Spark, and that's what we were talking about, is you go around and you do things and you collect this God Spark. So the idea is when you do these tests, you compare your roll versus your opponent's roll, and the amount of that your roll beat your opponent by, that's just energy. So you collect the awesomeness. So if he rolled a 4 and you rolled a 12, well, you just put a little extra flourish in there and you gain God Spark power. And what you can do with that God Spark power is spend it on spells. So basically what it does is it becomes an interesting way to collect command points in Kill Team. Where the more outstanding your rolls are, the more command points you collect to spend on command point special abilities if you applied it to the Kill Team.
Okay.
So it's like the more awesome you're rolling, the more God Spark you can collect, and you can bank it up.
So the more stylized and successful you are, the stronger you get.
Yeah, and so the stronger you get, the more God Spark you have in your pool, the more spells you can draw on. And that's where the high terrain comes in and fighting the super monsters, because you know what? I'm going to leap from this giant crag to that giant crag and stab you in the face. So let me spend my God Spark. So what it does is, since as the game goes on, you start collecting this God Spark, you get close to the end of the fight, you're going to start pouring, all limits are off. You're going to see some, Thor-esque style movie magic going on in there. And he really tries to create that cinematic feel of your Viking flying around the board and jamming everybody up and beating them down.
So really, if you just want to make Thor, this is the game for you. I mean,
Did you see that character on there?
Yes, it is Thor.
If he was holding a hammer.
You mean he's not?
No. I had to double check once you brought that out.
So how is the book laid out?
So, like to say, when you look at this, all Osprey game books, so the rules here are about 14 pages of rules. All right. So it's probably one of the simpler systems that we have looked at here. So all that cinematic feel that I was talking about, he's boiled that down to 14 pages. If you do a page count, it's actually 20. I just subtracted out the art in that. So,
which you have to.
Just say, well, how much text are you actually reading?
But the art is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so they did a really good job on whoever's illustrator is. I could look in the book, but I'm not going to.
Buy it yourself and look it up.
Yeah, buy the book. All right. So 203 pages, 14 are the rules right there. So you start with the fluff, the core rules, then you can move into the model profiles. You have 6 different models, and these are built around the traditional Viking organization. So you have Thane and their version of a bard and the cleric and regular berserkers featured in here. So I think this is a good point for me to point out why I bought this book. is because I never heard of this game until you came to me and said, "Hey James, want to buy Ragnarok?" And I said, "No, Brian, I am not going to buy another rule system and buy a whole new set of models." But James, you can use your dwarf berserkers from Warhammer. They'll fit right in. That was a lie.
That's was not a lie. There's dwarves in Viking mythology.
So I will use those dwarf berserkers as my Viking gang. But if you take a crew of all berserkers as the way they are modeled, it is not ideal. Shields are very important in this game. But let's carry on. I just wanted to bring that up, that you're a liar. So then you move into picking scenarios, how to measure, how to fight, and hand-to-hand combat, how to use the terrain. Like I said, this is one of those games, terrain does have a keyword.
Okay.
So there are thorny, spiky patches that you can push your opponent into.
Of course.
Pools of lava you can push your opponents into. Ice flows you can run across. So, and terrain and the combat have a very careful interaction. It's not as bad as BattleTech, of where I'm standing next to a tree on a hill and you're standing on the other side of the tree and trying to shoot or fly up. It's not that as bad as that, but when you are playing your first time, a couple times through it, you're going to have to pay attention to how the terrain interacts with your keywords and their keywords. And he uses those keywords basically simplify the rules, but also add that cinematic feel.
Yes.
So you got to get comfortable with the keywords, but we've seen that in a lot of other skirmish game now. Is keywords is how you add crunch to the game.
I think that's definitely going to be a big push, and we're going to see a lot of that in future games.
Yeah. Then clan creation, spells, and other monsters. So this one was very detailed on.
Yes, which is good. I mean, because it is a very detailed book.
But the bestiary section of this book is really long.
It's monstrous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get jokes.
So how is gameplay organized?
So you actually determine the scenario randomly, and how you deploy is random. Yeah. So you don't pick deployment. They have deployment options. So it's similar to the war cry with the shuffle of the cards.
Okay, I like that.
So it's like, okay, what scenario are you getting, and how am I going to enter the board? Out of your control.
Sweet.
So just you're going to jump in there. So it's like two random bands of Vikings stumbled across each other in a post-apocalyptic world, and they're going to have it out.
Gets an A+ for me, that's for sure.
So, but within that, you're fighting for the objectives, whatever they are. A pot of gold, something. You're going to fight over that. Okay. Something I should bring up: if you kill an animal off to the side, you can actually go gather its skin and make like interesting stuff out of it in the after action phase. I just thought that
leather armor comes from somewhere.
Random harvesting of animals that you've killed on the field. I did like that. That was pretty clever out there. It's like, hey,
you played Elder Scrolls?
I use every part of the troll. So you do have the option of adding the wandering monster mechanic in there, so you don't have to play that way. You go to your opponent and say, hey, I want to play with wandering monsters? Sure. And that'll actually become key, because it's not just like in Warcry or Zone Raiders of where it adds extra complication to it, but there's actually a game creation mechanic that comes from that agreement, and that'll come from the next question you asked me.
Yes. So speaking of game creation, how does that work?
All right. So like I said, it's points, whatever you call them, gold. This is 800 glory points. You get 7 character classes to pick from, and you don't get a lot of modification. So you get like a couple pieces of equipment. So pretty much any model for Viking is going to fit in here.
Sweet. Because
the way you customize your character is more on the Godspark side, which is something that's intangible, you can't see. So that makes it easier to get models, because it's like, where am I going to find a Viking with a 2-headed flail mace? No one makes a Viking with it. I'm going to have to customize that.
Yep.
Now, you can add some of the equipment on there, like they have their own version of healing kits, stuff like that. But as you progress in your game, you're going to up the ante by adding stuff that you don't see on the model, so intrinsic ability. So ask me the next question.
How much can you customize
a lot.
A lot.
By adding those innate abilities. So this is a game that as you progress and win battles, you can spend the magic points that you win on those battles on making your character stronger. So there's actually level progressions, and it's not just on the leader, anyone, and it's not just pieces of equipment that go into the gang stash. You make your character stronger, but you can add dwarves and elves to your gang. But how is that? That they're not in the base 7. You're humans, you have 7 classes.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is when you fight a battle, you have to get your opponent to say, you know what? I think elves or dwarves or both have a chance of wandering in on that battlefield. So once they come on your battlefield, you go over and you beat the hell out of the dwarf or the elf. You defeat him in the game, you win the scenario, whatever. Once you've defeated whatever creature wanders on there, you can now recruit them into the gang. So adding wandering crap on the field complicates the game you're fighting right now, but there might be someone you want to recruit into your gang later. So they're not going to agree to take your gold until you show them how strong you are, so you have to face them in battle. So yes, you can recruit dwarves. Dwarves act like the other humans. They have sentient and non-sentient monsters. You can recruit both of them. The sentient ones act like you. They're more restricted on progression and equipment or whatever. But you got to face them down first. And so that's why this game, I think, is really meaningless without a campaign system. Because I think it becomes sexy once you start adding in that defeating wandering monsters, and I'm going to recruit an ogre and a dwarf, and you're going to fight with me in my crew as I ascend to godhood.
So you can have dwarves in your war band.
Yes, you can. Now if I'm going to add 7 dwarf berserkers and everyone else sits back.
But see, I told him that you could use dwarves, and he said, can't take that back. All right, so you touched on the campaign system. How does the campaign system work?
So you need 2 or more players, like any campaign system.
Of course.
And you start going through the scenarios. I've looked through this book several times, but I haven't found how you determine, well, how does this thing kick off? And, well, how does it end? Because we've seen some other systems like Osprey Games Reality's Edge, and we've seen from Zone Raiders, there is actually a culminating scenario of like, well, I killed the VIP, or I ascended to the next layer in the Dyson Sphere.
Yes.
It's like, hey, here's how you do campaign structures. Is there a beginning? Is there an end? Like, I'm a god now? It's just like, we're over. One thing I will say, the campaign system is actually designed to bring new people on midstream. So if you start off with 12 people and some people drop off and some kid walks in there and says, hey, I've got Viking models, can I join? And you're 6 weeks deep, yes, there are rules for introducing that outsider midstream of the campaign system. So, and there's underdog rules, and actually, if you're an underdog, come in here and you beat up one of the tougher gangs, and actually you get an advantage to plus up to get caught up to that. So that's something I haven't seen in other rule systems or in campaign systems, and I think that's really important, especially the shops like this, where you try to run and organize campaigns and get that critical mass of people involved. And there's always that guy that comes in like 4 weeks into the campaign and says, can I play too? And it's like, wow, you're 4 weeks too late for our Dominion campaign because your gang is just never going to win. It's like, well, this guy compensated for that, which I appreciate in small game stores like this.
Yes, and see, that's been one of my big hurdles, is trying to figure out exactly that scenario. And I'm glad that people are like, game creators are actually thinking about that now, because that is a big problem, is people dropping, but also people gaining interest halfway through, because I mean, if you're a regular at a game store and you start seeing these people every week playing the same game, it's like, hey, it becomes more and more interesting for you, because you're regularly seeing them.
Well, let's talk about that customer capture. Like
yes.
When that 13-year-old kid, most likely a boy, let's be honest, Let's be honest. When that 13-year-old kid walks in and sees your stormtroopers or your Vikings out on the board and says, "Wow, that game looks cool. Can I play? Sure. Or can I watch? Sure, let me watch. Can I get miniatures like that? Sure, we sell them over there. Can I play with you guys? I'm sorry, maybe in 2 months when we wrap up this campaign, you can come back." This is more like, you know what? Go pop open that blister pack of WizKids, set up right now. Let's throw down.
And see, that's what I want. Is I like games that, especially campaign games, where people can just jump right in.
And you know what? Read 14 pages of this book right now. Pay what? WizKids are like $3.50.
$5 a pack for 2 miniatures usually.
Yeah. And so you need 7. So
yeah.
Read these 14 pages, spend $25, come back here. When I'm done with this game, you're in the campaign now.
See, love it.
Because otherwise, he's going out the door, and it's a long shot he's ever coming back in.
Because my biggest thing in gaming is inclusiveness, openness, and flexibility. I want as many people as possible to play games because I love games and I love seeing people play games. So seeing systems being worked around so that people can join whenever, and not feel like they missed out, is a big thing for me and actually draws me towards games.
Well, I travel around a lot, and I try to drop in on tightly knit crews who are playing games. And so I actually have like a little case. And it's like, what 4 games am I going to bring on the airplane with me? Yeah. It's like, and I've got to diversify, and I've got to find a game somewhere. And the Game 4 app doesn't go everywhere in the country.
No, it does not.
So I'm trying to find someone in Ashburn, Virginia, or Farmingville, New York. And I got to drop it in a game, and it's like get like this tight knit crew. It's like, oh, this is our one day to play our campaign system. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go back to my hotel and cry now with my toys. They always give me comfort.
Please be open to other players and teach more people. We need more people in this gaming world, and people of all creeds, please. All right, so moving on from that, how are the scenarios included?
Damn it! You got the old sheet. All right, so
you printed this.
I gave you the wrong question sheet. I hate that one.
Okay, well then let's skip that because you already
book.
Yes, you already said that it's randomly created. So
yeah, so a lot of that you're just messing around with terrain and objectives.
Okay.
So you know what it is? You've got a little pawn piece. Go grab the pawn piece. Isn't like that all these games?
That's pretty much every scenario in every.
Do you just hold it till the end, or do you have to run off the board with it? That's like the big variety.
Yep. you nicked it right in the bud right there. All right. So what is this game missing?
Examples. We have seen that with so many Osprey games. I mean, Games Workshop's horrible with it, with like Kill Team and Necromunda, but they at least give you something.
Yes.
So you have to read through the rules a lot. So a lot of this consists of me sitting down with my book, my little miniature. Okay. Now, can I jump? And then so you start getting the rules lawyering.
Yes.
Actually, on page 12, that's called not a move action. And as you'll refer to page 11, a move action can only be... So if they had some more examples of how to play out some of these things for like a couple rounds, I know that adds to the page count. But I mean, God, we saw Reality's Edge. They're obviously not afraid of page counts.
They're not afraid of page count.
But they are afraid of giving you examples
yes.
of like Rorg shot Tharg in the face with a bow. Can you walk me through that?
And that's been the biggest complaint I've had. I have a group here that comes in once a week, and this is a popular game with them, and they specifically said that's the main thing missing out of the book. So if you are going to jump in this game, remember that. There are a couple Facebook pages that are perfect for you if you're looking at this. There's the Ragnarok page. Tim is actually pretty active on that. So he answers questions if you have any. But but just keep that in mind if you're getting into this game. So where do you hope this game goes?
So we already know they're going to do another expansion, Veneer, out there. But what I'm looking for is more Godspark abilities. Since these are basically command points, that's how you really flavor it up, is different things that you can do on the battlefield once you've tested through them. It's one of those things that's nice to have. I mean, how many command point, like special command tactics outside of a handful do you actually use? Now, the interesting thing about this is they're randomly determined. That's how they maintain balance in the game. So you're not using the same ones over and over. So it does force you to be more clever. Like, you know what, I could use it in this type of scenario. So I appreciate that about it. But, more spells is always helpful. Everyone likes those. More scenarios in there, a bigger bestiary, but this one's already pretty big in it. So,
but more,
I think there's dragons. I don't remember seeing dragons. Maybe get like that big Tiamat.
Put
that in the middle of the board. I can see that in the Tiamat scenario.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things I actually was flipping through reading this, and I thought, you know what? There's no reason this has to be Vikings.
No.
This could be, and I thought, medieval knights tournament. I mean, there's already Steel and Steed that's out there. If you want to do a tournament, but if you just want to do skirmish fighting with guys with armor and weapons, it doesn't have to be Vikings. And then I started thinking, you know what? I could actually do. I've never played Test of Honor. Guys with weapons and armor going at each other. You can change the models out. You could really apply this to anything. So I could see him taking this Morpheus Engine and applying it to other settings beyond just Vikings. So you could have the Ragnarok version of Zulu campaigns, Aztec versus Inca, pre Christopher Columbus contact out there, Japanese fights out there, India.
Yeah, you could do like different lores with this.
That's what I say, Test of Honor. It's like, honestly, if you take this rule book and just swap out the miniatures, it can be any particular, you want to do game. The only thing it's missing is horse riding. So if you want to do Genghis Khan or some mounted knights, that would be a problem. But would that be an issue with some of like Aztec versus Incas, pre-Columbia? Taking your little pieces of jade and stabbing each other, that would fit in right.
Oh yeah, perfectly.
So I could see that working.
Awesome. So why should I play this game?
I would say for a lot of the games I work at, that we've looked at while we've done this, it's a narratively dynamic combat system. So it's probably the closest to developing Thor the movie as a miniature game. Like, do you want that big, explosive, super-powered action in miniature? Which you normally only get if you play high-level games of D&D.
Yes.
So this is a miniature version of that, of where you get not too many wizards, just super-powered, armored guys beating the heck out of each other.
Yeah.
Or ladies.
Or ladies.
If you
or everything in between.
Whatever. Not judging. Judgment-free zone.
So why shouldn't I play this game?
If you don't like campaign systems, then you don't like Vikings. So this is not a walk-in, drop-and play.
No, definitely not.
I know I hate those people that drop in on D&D or BattleTech games and like, look at my super awesome mech pilot that I earned from other, or look at my Necromunda game. Yes, he has all this rare. How do I know?
Yes.
You can't drop in with a super powered up game in the middle of our game and say it's balanced up.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a campaign system game. If you just want drop in, drop out, go get Kill Team.
Yes.
That's perfect for that. This is not a pickup game.
Okay. So if you're looking for a quick and easy.
So would I take this game with me when I travel? Only if I'm showing someone.
Yes.
This is for when you're at home and you got weeks at a time. You want to play.
Where you set up a campaign.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, I think that wraps up everything. That wraps up this discussion on Ragnarok. Any final remarks?
I gotta go buy Viking miniatures. Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
You're a liar. You, sir, are a liar.
You just said that you could use those miniatures.
Eventually, in a campaign system. But now I gotta get a Bondi and a Thane.
I didn't lie. I just left out stats.
You left out pertinent truths at the beginning of the process. All right, let's wrap this up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.
We'll be seeing you.
Sweet.